Evening, my lovelies. How are you? Happy Wednesday. I hope everyone's okay. Can you hear me to start with? Because my laptop did a Google Windows update thing and I had to mess around with the microphones. So let me know if you can hear me first of all. Hopefully you can. I was just watching a bit of Gail's live. I love those. Petal and Sprout, they're fab. Love them. She always does such lovely demos as well. It all is really, I just love her stuff. It's so different. Hi Jean, hello my darling. Oh, I hope you're not in too much pain, love. I saw your post earlier. I'm sending you a big, well, gentle, crafty hug. You can hear, brilliant. Oh, cool, I fixed it. Well, it wasn't exactly broken, but you know, fixed it-ish. What was I going to say? As soon as I come off here, I'm actually going to do a little live with Hayley. I think it's going to be on the craft store. So if you haven't already followed that page, please do. Because tomorrow night, myself, a Secret Sewing Club are going on the craft store tomorrow night. Basically, we're going to launch it and see what happens. It works exactly, as I was saying to you yesterday, guys, it works exactly the same as Secret Sewing Club now. You're buying directly from us, you're not buying from them. We're just basically using it as a platform to do more lives, do more demos, show you more stuff. So I think I'm doing a little test with her later. So if you haven't followed that page yet, please do. You like my hair? Ah, thank you, lovely. Yeah, I had it all cut off yet last week, a week ago. So yeah, thank you. Fancied a change. Hi Grace, hi Marilyn, hi Anne. Oh, I haven't seen you for hours, Anne. Who else is there? Jean, you've got painkillers. Oh, I'm really good, really. Am I a bit quiet again? Okay, am I quiet for everybody? I can turn the mic up a little bit. I just don't want to go into like feedback mode. How's that? Is that a little bit better? Is that a bit louder? Hopefully, I've got to be really careful with the levels. What was I going to say? What else was I going to say? There was some other news. Oh, yes. So, I didn't bring it over with me. Damn it. So we were very kindly gifted a beautiful set of the Metler silk finish cottons. There are 96 in the box. It comes in a beautiful case and there are 96, all the colours you could possibly need. And they are the silk finish cottons, so they're beautiful for hand quilting if you're a hand quilter, but they will also go on the machine. They're gorgeous. They're all 150mm reels. There's 96 of them in the case. You get the case as well. Each reel, I think it's £2.85. It works out at £295. If you were to buy it all separately, all the reels separately, it'd be £295. We're doing a raffle for it. It's on sale now. Some of you have already found it. Some of you saw Sean put a post up yesterday. We're doing the raffle until Tuesday next week, I believe it is. I might have that date wrong, but it's a week basically. So yeah, it's Tuesday we'll be drawing it. The raffle tickets are £2 a go, and you could win £295 worth of thread. So, you know, all the colours you could possibly ever need. Hi Angela. Oh, don't worry about being late, love. I don't give detention. It's fine. Hi Claire. Hello. Hi Lindy Lou. Hello, my darling. So yeah, so that raffle is live on our website now. It's called the Metler Silk Finish Cotton Raffle. There's the whole thing there. You've got some tickets, Jean. Yes, I did that one. Catherine, thanks for the Spiky Star demo yesterday. You tried it and did a sample today and you loved it. Oh, brilliant. That's great. I like to hear when people have actually tried stuff. Don't forget, if you aren't a member of the Gigglers, it's called a Giggle of Geckos. It's our social page. You can post lots of pictures in there. Of what you're doing, of what you've made, share your stuff. So Catherine, if you're not yet a member, please join in and post a picture. I'd like to see your blocks. Fab. Hi Sharon, hello my lovely, nice to meet you. Well, is it your first time joining us? Have you just found us, or have you been before and you just found this one? Lynn, you've got yours too. Brilliant, you've got your raffle tickets. So yeah, there is that raffle on the website. Right. There was something else I was going to tell you, but I will remember that later and let you know when it comes back into my stupid head. What we're going to do tonight, a little bit different. So we've got lots of people that have said they're very, very new to quilting and very new to patchwork. So I've called it Next Steps because we all make these blocks, and we all made, make quilt tops and placemats and stuff like that. But you've got to actually finish it. You've got to take the next step. So what I thought I'd do tonight is go through some of the ways that you can actually quilt. Because we do the patchwork stuff all the time, but we don't necessarily go through the quilting process. And so I'm going to touch a little bit on some hand quilting and some two different types of hand quilting, and then also how I look at a block and sort of decide where everything goes and everything. So how I'm going to quilt it, and also then how to do some basic quilting on your machine. So it's the next steps. After you've done your piece of patchwork, what do you do next? That's what we're going to do tonight. Some of you will know all this and you're just going to put up with me rabbiting, or go and get yourself a cup of tea. Lots of you won't. Lynn, you've got the yarn and the fat eights as well. Brilliant. Fabulous. Well done, darling. That's fabulous. I'm glad that got to you okay. I think it just said, Carol, it said you were having struggling to square up the half rectangle triangles from yesterday's block. Just think about finding those 2 points, the 3.5 and the 6.5 on your ruler, and they're going to go on your diagonal. Okay, go back and rewatch the video and just have a check. If you're still struggling, give me a shout and I'll give you a hand. Okay, cool. Right, my lovely. Hello from Monmouth. Mary is with Sarah Jane and all that, her lovely little group, Julia and Lorna and Jill and all those lovely ladies. She's at is it Rockfield Studios, where they do a retreat. So Sarah's gone on a retreat instead of having to do one like work. She's gone to actually do some sewing of her own with the lovely Mary and some of the other ladies that are there. So hi, I wish I was with you, my darling, but one of us has to stay in the shop, unfortunately. Next time, maybe next time. Nikki, you've posted your inset circle to me. Thank you very much. We've had 3 arrive already of the group. Sorry, there's a lot of chatter in before I get into this. Sorry. We've had 3 of the group quilt blocks back in, the inset circles. 4 actually, because Anne brought hers in today. Can I just say, Joyce, because you're there, that embroidery on yours is stunning. The wings on that bee and that, just beautiful. I thought it was gorgeous, Joyce. Who else sent one, which was really pretty? It was her note made me laugh. Now I can't remember what her name was. Her note really made me laugh. It was stripy and had glitter on it. Leslie, I think it was. Well, I can't remember what your surname was. Sorry, my darling. But your note made me laugh, and it's beautiful. I love your block. So yeah, we've had a few in. So if you have done them, get them into me. Liz, you're still working on yours. No worry. You've got until March the 15th to get them back to me. Okay. Right. Okay. Let's get on with the actual demonstration. After I've been yabbering on, you need to see it, please. Lindy Lou, you can see it tomorrow in the shop, my darling. Right. So over here. So I'm obviously doing these small, okay, because I've got a limited amount of space and I just want to be able to show you some bits. So I've done up some little quilt sandwiches so that we can talk about some hand quilting and some machine quilting. Okay, so if you've got any questions about quilting, shout out. Okay, this is your time to pick my brains. I'm going to go through just very, very quickly how I based. Okay, you can baste lots of different ways. I'm just going to go through how I based. These ones I quilt tonight, I'm going to make into project wallets. I need a load more project wallets. I've got to get organised, so that's what I'm going to do. So I've got my lovely piece of patchwork, okay, just there, like that. I've got a piece of wadding, which is bigger. You want about 2 inches bigger all round, whatever your size block is. Okay, you want about 2 inches bigger. And then I've got a piece of backing fabric. Now this is just an old flat quarter that I'm using because it's small, but this would be the same process if you were quilting something bigger. Okay, now you can baste it in lots of different ways. You can tack all this together, which is the very traditional way of doing it. If you're ever going to be using Daphne, please don't tack it. We have to take all the tacking off before it goes on a long armour. But if you are going to be hand quilting, tacking works really well. Tacking is quite difficult to machine quilt with though, because the foot can get caught in the tacking stitches quite easily. So if you're going to hand quilt, you could tack, or you could use safety pins. You can use curved safety pins and baste it that way. I prefer to spray baste. Okay, now I use either this one, which is the 505, which is a temporary adhesive, or the June Taylor quilt basting spray. Either one, I think they're much for muchness. They both do the same job. It's really whichever can I grab first, to be honest. Always with basting spray, always spray the wadding, not the fabric, okay? It doesn't need a lot. That's it, okay? And then you're just going to just spread that out, all right, like that. Now I'm going to do this very quickly because most of you will know how to baste. There's some of you that don't. So Leslie, I loved it. I thought it was a beautiful block, and your little note properly made me giggle. I thought it really did. I like the fact for what you said on it about being, was it a little bit messy and a little bit sparkly or something like that. But it made me laugh, which is lush. And then we're going to do exactly the same on the back. Now, iron your fabrics first. I haven't ironed this one, but iron your fabrics, okay? It does help. It does help. Particularly if you're doing a bigger project than this, okay? But I'm just doing this for quickness tonight. So, like that, okay? And then trim your backing down. So if you've got your wadding sort of an inch and a half to 2 inches bigger, you want your backing fabric about the same again, about an inch and a half to 2 inches bigger. The reason is, the more you quilt, the more this gets sucked up, and if you have them exactly the same size as you quilt, this kind of goes like that, and then you've got nothing at your edges. You want it bigger. Again, if you're ever sending it to a long armour, a long arm will probably want 4 to 5 inches all the way around so that they can clamp in and they can get right to the edge. Okay, so like that. Okay, so basting with spray, really simple. Okay, if you're going to like hand baste, or you're going to try and baste a whole quilt, look up the pool noodle net. Sparkles and simple, that was it. Lovely. It did make me laugh, it really did. You look up the pool noodle method if you're going to do a big quilt and you're trying to do it at home. It works really, really well. Okay, so we're going to look just briefly at machine quilting first, and then we're going to look at hand quilting. Okay, so I've got 2 different blocks here. All right, you can mark these up in a variety of ways. Okay, I've got a few different ways of marking up. I've got an air erasable pen. Okay, now these are great because they just disappear over time. However, they disappear quickly. Okay, they don't last 24 hours. They last maybe 20-25 minutes. So these are great for something small like this, where I just want to quickly mark up something and then I'm going to stitch it straight away. I once, not realizing that they disappeared that quickly, marked up a whole quilt with quilt stencils, thinking I'll do that tomorrow. I spent about 3 hours on it when I was first starting out. This is years and years and years ago. By the time I got back to it, about 3 hours later, it all gone. All that time was wasted. Okay, so air erasables have their place. Lots of different makes out there. This is a sew line one. They are great. Does mean you can draw into your fabric, and probably by the end of this live, that will have disappeared. Okay, they do go quick. You can use Friction pens. Okay, but if your quilt gets extremely cold, like if you're posting it and it's going in an aeroplane, something like that, and I'm talking super, super cold, your marks can reappear. And sometimes on very dark fabrics, they can leave like a little white line. I use Friction pens and heat erasable pens all the time for the backs when I'm doing half square triangles, all that sort of thing, and marking up. I rarely use them on the front of something, just in case. Okay, now I've never had it happen to me. It's always worked fine. It's always been fine. And for something like a project wallet, I probably would risk it. I probably would. Hang on, just coming in so you can see this is already starting to fade, that one. I probably would risk it for something like this. I would absolutely put Friction on, erase it once I'd quilted, and it's fine. But if this is like an heirloom quilt, you know, something that you want to last years and years, I wouldn't ever use Frixon to mark up my quilting, okay? One of the other ones you can use is a water erasable pen. These are great. These are like the air erasable. They will stay, they will stay until I wash that off, okay? And by wash it off, I literally just get a bit of kitchen roll, dab it in water, damp, and dab, 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 and it goes, okay? And that doesn't leave any mark. They are completely fabric safe. The other way you can mark up your quilt is with a pointer, you know, or something that's got a sharp edge. You can get pinwheels as well, which do the same thing. And you basically, oh, I'm just trying to grab a ruler. You're basically going to crease in your pattern, okay? And I'm going to mark it. So say with this design, I wanted a shadow quilt down this. I would literally use the point here because this is sort of beveled. And you can literally just run that down like that and like that. I don't know if you can see that, guys, but it's left enough of a crease that I can then take this to the machine and follow it. Okay, follow that line. And that will stay in there really until you iron it out. You know, so it's very hard to show you. I don't know if you can actually see that on the screen, but that's left me with this really nice crease line, which I can then follow on the machine. Okay, so while we're talking about machine quiltings, lots of people say, I don't know how to quilt my blocks, my quilts. How would you do it? For me, I always look at, if I'm going to do it on my machine, if I'm not going to do it on the long arm, I'm just going to do it on my domestic machine, which something this size I would. Okay, let me just come back over here a second. Are you all with me so far, lovely? Sorry, just got to blow my nose. Is this of any interest? I hope it is. I'm trying to sort of take through a few methods. Oh, I meant to say as well, one of the other options you can use is a chalk pencil. Something like the Roxanne ones, okay? These come off in with water as well. So they don't have wax in them, which is really good. But these are washable, so you can mark up your quilt. It's quite difficult to see, again, on camera. You can mark up your quilt so you've got lines to follow with the Roxanne ones. It's basically like a chalk pencil that's got a mixer in with the chalk, so it doesn't get really dusty like Taylor's chalk does. You can sharpen it easily, you can draw out your pattern, and then you just dab this off again with just, you know, a damp cloth, damp water, and it will get rid of it like this does. Okay, so that's another option too. You can also buy things like Gecko pens, and you can buy quilter's pounce, which is basically like a chalk dust which you can go through a stencil, and it leaves little tiny sort of chalk marks and stuff. But that's getting into more advanced, not advanced quilting, but adventurous quilting, shall we say. So I thought I'd just go through sort of some of the normal options. You're still all there. Brilliant. You're just in concentration. Fabulous. So which would you use for doing quilting pattern? If I'm using a quilt stencil, which, oh, have I got any here anywhere? I have, but they're buried under my table. I should have got one out. If I'm using a quilt stencil, you know, they look like sort of template plastic with a design cut out, and you can put them on and then do, you know, follow that out. I tend to use a water erasable with that because I know it's fabric safe. I know it's not going to disappear and it will draw through. If it's on really dark fabrics, I tend to then sharpen up the old Roxanne and do it with that. But the water erasables are really, really good for stencils. That's how kind of what I use. Okay, mainly anyway. If it's something like this design, I almost always, if I'm going to plan it out myself, I always use this method with, you know, like creasing it in, because that way I know that I can just iron that out and it'll be gone. So lots of people ask me, how would you quilt a block? How do you look at the block? So for me, this block, I look at this block and think, for me, it's very linear. There's lots of lines in it. So what I want to do is emphasize that, really think about the lines. And also, when you quilt something, it presses it down. It compresses the fabric, wadding and backing fabric. So it makes things go, looks like it's going behind something else. So for me, like this one here, I think that looks like that's going behind this one when I look at it. and this looks like it's going behind that. So I would shadow quilt down like that, and I'll talk to you about what shadow quilting is on these three, like that, to push those back even further, and it'll look like these are slightly higher, that's more squished, and they're going underneath. So that's how I look at a block. I think, what sort of design is it? What do I want it to look like things are going behind each other? We'll go through the same thing with a different block in a moment about how I would look at different blocks. I also want this design to look like it's higher than this. So I would put a lot more quilting into this background piece, again, to push it back, okay? A lot of people think they should start with stitch in the ditch when they're quilting, all right? Don't. There's no quilt police, absolutely. You might be brilliant at stitch in the ditch. However, stitch in the ditch is actually not very forgiving. If you are new to quilting on your machine, it's not forgiving, because if I'm going doopy 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 all the way down here, sitting in this ditch there, I've only got to do a tiny wobble over one way, and you will see that little blip of a stitch, and then you might not see anything, and then you go, oh no, there's another little blip, okay? So it's much more forgiving to do what we call shadow quilting. And what shadow quilting is, if I just grab a foot off my machine a second, is imagine, right, this is my quilting foot, okay, on my machine. This is my 1/4 inch. So I want my shadow quilt to be a 1/4 inch away. So what I would do is use the edge of the foot along the edge of that seam so that I can stitch, 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 stitch. And even if you've got a slight wobble, it's a lot, because you've got a definite line of stitching, a slight wobble is less noticeable in a line of stitching than it is a little blip. Okay, so shadow quilting is where I would normally say for people to start their machine quilting journey. Okay, there's lots of other things you can do. Is obviously use your decorative stitches and all things like that. So we're gonna, before we start quilting on this one, I'm just gonna talk through this block, okay? Because this to me is a very different block to the first one. It looks different. It's got how I would quilt this is very different, okay? This is very spiky, it's very angular. And sometimes when you've got something very spiky and very angular, you want to emphasize those spikes and angles. Other times you want to soften them, all right? The nice thing about this one is as well, is I've got this really nice space here, where I could do a bit of a pattern, okay? Now you can do lots and lots of patterns on your machine just with a straight stitch. There's a great, amazing book called Walk, W-A-L-K, Walk, which you can, it's on Amazon, you can get it all over the place, which is all about doing really intricate designs just with your walking foot, all right? Now, for something like this one, I might actually use a serpentine stitch to soften some of this, because it's very angular, the design. And actually, by using a serpentine stitch, which I'll show you on the machine in a minute, I'm just drawing it for now, down these edges, like that. Ooh, that was very wonky, okay? Like that. It'll just give it a more gentle edge. This piece here, there is nothing stopping me using a little stencil or just anything with a round edge. Let me see if I've got something. Just a second, girls. There we go. Something like this. So I've got a circular template. Why, rather than stitch just it round like that as a square, why not think about messing around with it? So I could, this is not necessarily the right size like that, but I could do a line like that way. And then I could move that way, here we go, like that, and stitch a line like that, okay? So I'm immediately adding more curves in. I could then do it that way, all right? So I've got 4 little lines. Again, I'm just, because there's circles on here, on the pattern, it's quite nice sometimes to think about some of the patterns on your fabrics and echoing those in your quilting. So if let's just put that in there like that, okay? So I've got like this sort of petal design. We'll stitch this in a moment on the machine so you can have a little look and see. Okay, so think about what you want. This, I mean, this block, if you want to keep it really spiky and stuff, you could absolutely just do straight lines, like matchstick quilt. Do you know what I mean by matchstick quilting? Where you go, you know, literally line, 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 really thin lines. Just because you've got diagonals, a simple cross hatch. So diagonal lines one way, diagonal lines the other way would work. Just going round the edge and then maybe round here if you want something simple would work. Okay, so think about what you want from your block when you're quilting, okay? And what you want will be very, very different to what I want or what somebody else wants. It's very hard when people say, how would you quilt this block? Because what I would do might be very different to what somebody else does, okay? The other thing, what was it? Oh, something popped in my head then. Something popped in my head I thought was really important to tell you and I forgot what it was. Oh, quilting, yeah. So I've got an 80-20 quilt here, wadding here. The wadding will tell you on it normally how many inches in between you need to quilt. Now for most waddings, it's approximately at hand's width, okay? So if I've got a line of quilting in that centre bit, I need at least a hand's width, so I would need to come round the outside of this as well, okay? At least a hand's width in any direction. You want some sort of stitching to hold it all together. Right, we're going to whip over to the machine. I'm going to talk through settings and then hopefully you can have a little, you'll have a little play and have a think about what you're doing. And then I'll go through some hand quilting as well, some different types of hand quilting for you. Now I probably should have put black or something on so you can really see this, but I've got white on. Sorry guys, I'm just going to swig my coffee as well. Okay, so first things first, put a walking foot on, okay? If you've got a walking foot for your machine, please use it, okay? Now, I should have got my really old machine out and got my walking foot out. My machine has a built-in walking foot. This bit here is actually the built-in walking foot, okay? Normally, they're a big chunky foot that you put on. It's called a walking foot, not a running foot, for a reason. Do not go full speed ahead when you're trying to quilt. You will get puckers and twists and crinkles, particularly when you're starting out. Go slow. Turn your speed down on your machine and go slow. The other thing you want to do as well is, because obviously you're going through thickness, you're going through seams on your patchwork, your wadding and your backing fabric, you want to turn your stitch length up. And I normally go to about, on this machine, about 3.5. It might be that you go up to 4, you could even go up to 4.5, depending on what you want. You can also check your own manual, check the manual for your machine. There will be different stitches in the machine that you can use, you know. So I wonder if I just put a black thread in, because I want you guys to be able to see this. Let me hang on, let me put a coloured thread on. Let me just put a coloured thread on real quick, so that you guys can at least see what I'm doing. Otherwise you're never going to see it if I just leave it in white. Let me just put this one on. 2 seconds, lovelies. So any questions so far? Is there anything there that, I mean, most of you will probably know all this anyway, but is there any questions? There we go. Right, so the simplest of simple quilting, okay? We can shadow quilt. Now I've creased lines in there, but I could absolutely just shadow quilt. So I'm keeping the edge of my foot along the seam and I'm going to stitch, okay? So go in slower, slow down when you're quilting, like that. And this is what I mean by shadow quilting. So I'm keeping the edge of the foot right along that seam. I'm going to stop with my needle down so I can turn and stitch that way. I'll show you all these on the overhead in a minute. Very useful if you've never quilted. Oh, amazing. I always used to say it's a walking foot, not a running foot when you were teaching. Yeah, Nikki, people think they go really quick, don't they? But it's a walking foot for a reason, okay? Once you've done one line, you can then use that line as your guide instead of the edge of the seam. So I can put another line in. Now I could mark this up if I wanted to, or I can use the line I've just sewn as my guide. So I've got them equally spaced. And we could go down that way. And down that way. And you could keep it going. You could keep doing this. Okay? So I could do that again. So I could use this line as a guide, and I could fill in all my blank spaces just with sort of echoing the angles of the block. Okay, like that. Right, I'm not obviously not going to do all of them because I want to go on to other things with you and show you other things. Okay, I was talking earlier about this one looks like it goes under this one, so I want to quilt these more heavily than I do these ones. All right, so you could do what I call, you could do matchstick quilting, which would be several lines all the way in. It used to be as well, it's particularly if you're in doing a big quilt, not just a single block. Start from the middle and work outwards. It will help. It helps like move everything. Okay, when you're doing something small like this, it really doesn't matter as much. It's doing individual blocks like this is really good if you're doing quilt as you go, because you can be more adventurous with the quilting on each block because they're little than struggling with a whole new quilting. Your shadow quilting could also be called echo stitching. Yes, Nikki, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes they call it echo stitching. Yeah, I think, would you use a glitter thread? You can use glitter thread, absolutely. Just make sure you use a metallic needle or something with it. Yeah, I call it shadow quilting because that's what it was called when I was taught it years ago, 20 odd years ago when I started patchwork and quilting. But some people do absolutely call it echo quilting because you're echoing the shapes. And echoing seams. I think it's one of those. Will the fabric ruck up as you've not started in the middle? Not with something this size, okay? Because this is only a small block, it can do if you're working on a massive quilt and you're trying to go from corner to corner with a diagonal, and then you're trying to go back the other way. You can get like horrible little blips, and then you get like pleats and stuff in it. But one of the reasons we do quilt as you go quite a lot with big blocks and with beginners is you can be more adventurous with your machine quilting on a small block, and you won't get those ruckles and and creases as much. Okay, so you can play around with this. I'm going to leave that now because I want to do that curved one for you that I did in the centre of this, and also show you a serpentine stitch. So I'm going to follow those lines that I marked out. Now, again, a bit like when we do June Taylor stuff or any sort of foundation piece in, you drop your needle in and then bring your needle back out. You can bring that bobbin thread up. You create less of a bird's nest. Now this is a curve. Even though I'm doing a straight line, I'm not doing free motion, I've drawn out curves. You can still do curves, okay? You just got to go slow and steady. And you're gonna, there's a little, now for me, I've got a little line on my foot here, little in groove there, and I want to keep that on that line. So I'm just going to do 2 or 3 stitches, stop, move it, 2 or 3 stitches, stop, move it. So I'm not concentrating on the needle, I'm concentrating on the line and keeping it lined up with the line on my foot. Okay, so stop, there we go. If you go really slowly, you can actually turn it as you go, but it gets a bit tedious if you do that, so I tend to stop and go. There we go. There we go, so that back to that one. Now, rather than break my thread, you can travel as well. So I can come down to here and I can stitch in the ditch. Oh, except I just moved that, damn it. After me telling me to be careful, after telling myself to be careful. There we go. Oh, no, wrong one. Ooh, hang on, there we go, that way. It's because I was reading the comments then. And I'm going to get to the start of this next line so I can stitch down this one. Less thread, less ends to stitch in, okay? So, also keep an eye on the backing, then if you catch something, yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point, Nikki. Particularly if you're doing a big quilt, keep an eye on your back because it's so easy to get little creases and stuff in. It's a really good point. Joyce, open toe foot, absolutely, you can use an open toe foot, particularly if I'm doing something like this, which I want to keep to the line, using an open toe foot, something like, hang on, like that, okay, which has got a big open toe on it, so I can see the line easier, definitely. Or some needle feet have got like a little piece of plastic perspex, haven't they? So you can see through. Now for me, the little guide here, the little groove, is quite visible. I know it's probably difficult for you guys to see, but that's quite visible for me to line that up along there. Okay, now my next starter line is all the way down here, but I'm going to travel it. I'm going to travel it down the side here, really concentrated on doing that stitch in the ditch. So sometimes it's worth planning on how, particularly if you're going to do a little design, planning on how you're going to get in and out of it with the least amount of ends, stopping and starting as you can. Okay, I'm sorry, it's probably a little boring for you to watch now because I'm just doing the same bits over and over. But there we go. And I'm going to go turn that way to the corner and back the other way. Okay, and then last line just on that little circular design sort of thing. Looks like petals or something, doesn't it? Like orange peel patchwork in the centre. There we go, and then lock stitch off. Would you use a smaller stitch length for curve stitching? No, I still stick about 3.5, to be honest. Let me come back over here a second. I still stick about 3.5 even with curved because of the bulk, because you're getting through three layers, and sometimes when you're going over these seams as well, you're going to go over more than that, more than that layers. So I would still stick at that sort of 3.5, 4. Just slow down, just go slow and do 2 or 3 stitches. Now hopefully if I come to the close up, you can kind of see that that's created that little. Now I've got a variegated thread in there as well, so it's slightly different colours, but I've created that little design with, if I do that for you, hopefully you can see that, just with a plate. You could use a plate or anything, and it just means that your straight line stitching can be something slightly different. I don't know if you can see it better on the back there. Okay, really, that was so easy to create, but it's a bit different to just a straight line, a bit of shadow quilting. So play around with some orphan blocks. We talked about orphan blocks last week. Play around with some orphan blocks. These could be quilts you glued together for something, but it just gives you an idea. People get really scared of the quilting bit, but have a little play. Okay, think about your block, think about how you're going to do it. Oh, that's what I wanted to show you was try doing different stitches as well. So almost all machines have got a serpentine stitch on them. Let me just find it on my machine a second. And it's one of my favourite easy ones to use. Okay, is it that one or is it that one? No, it's that one. Okay, so let me just tuck that in a little bit. Okay, like that. So I'm just going to go down this line here. Okay, just so you can see it. All right, and what it does, it stitches out. It's quite a big serpentine, but you can vary the width. You can vary the length of it. I'm just going to go down this one bit so you guys can see it. It's one of my favourite for something a bit different to straight line quilting. Okay, it's the serpentine. It's such an easy stitch to do. Almost all machines have got it, and again, it's not just that straight line. All right, but most machines have got lots and lots of decorative stitches. It doesn't have to be a straight stitch. It can absolutely use some of your decorative stitches. Can you see? So obviously you would do that all the way around, and it's maybe not right for this block, but it was just to show you. This serpentine stitch is one that is, you can use, I use a lot for something a bit different than just a straight line. And, the machine does it for you, and I kept the edge of the foot along that edge, so it's all nicely spaced. But almost even really old machines tend to have one of these serpentines, or use a zigzag or something like that. You can use all of that in your quilting. Okay, so hopefully that just gives you a little bit of an very, very, very brief overview, an idea of what you can do with machine quilting, okay, as a beginner. You know, if you've been quilting for years, you know all this. Oh, Lynn, what's an orphan block? Sorry, I'll come over here a second, just before I start the hand quilting. Orphan blocks are those blocks you make when you're practicing something, and it's actually gone together quite well. So it looks really nice, but you think, I don't want to use that in my quilt because it's scrap. You know, blah blah blah. You know, so it gets put in a box somewhere, and you end up with lots and lots of orphan blocks that don't have a quilt to go to. So I'm doing a little series at the moment. I started last week of what to do with your orphan blocks. These are orphan blocks. These are blocks where I've just been practicing a pattern, just have a play around. Does that work? Do those colours work? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm happy with how that works. Now I'm going to use my proper fabrics, you know. So that's what an orphan block is. Linda, this session's been fabulous for me. Thank you so much. Oh, you're very welcome. Hi, Patty. How are you? Just to be sure to remember to change the stitching plate and presser foot. Yes. So I've got two different stitch plates on my machine. And also if you're using a quarter inch foot because you've been piecing and you've been using the single hole plate, which has got a teeny tiny little hole, don't then try and do a zigzag because you'll smash your needle. Okay, make sure you change all those bits. Excuse me. Right, very, very briefly, we're going to talk about hand quilting now. I am not a hand quilting expert in any way, shape or form. I have done quite a bit of hand quilting, but I don't necessarily like hand quilting. I'm not patient enough for it at all. So I'm really not. But now and then, a block that I've done, I think that needs some hand quilting. Okay, so if I can mark over here. This was a little block that I did ages and ages ago, which I basted up. It was all hand pieced. It was is it a Brim? It might be a Brimfield's block, Brimfield Awakening, one of those. I can't remember. I'd obviously spent time fussy cutting my fabrics and stuff. So all the little swallows, although it really bugs me that I've got two going the wrong way. Found this in the back of a box from ages and ages and ages ago. Okay, but because it's English paper piecing, it's a bit of EPP. Sometimes I think it's really nice also to have a little bit of stitching to do of an evening. Now, you can go and look at Sandy Lush. Sandy Lush is the queen of hand quilting. Her hand quilting is exquisite. I mean, it's just incredible. And that's who you need to go look at for proper hand quilting, okay? My version of hand quilting is something they call long stitching, because I cannot do the rocking backwards and forwards. I've tried and tried for years. I do have a big quilting hoop, which people say to use. I can't get on with it. So my version of hand quilting is something they call long stitching, which I really enjoy doing. It's a little bit more rustic. It's a little bit more decorative. You very often see it in things like red work design, where you've got like a really nice decorative edge and all on it. Okay, something I like to do. Okay, now I also like to do long stitching with cotton perle. Okay, rather than embroidery silks. I could just use it straight off the reel and everything. Patty, you're a hand quilter at heart. Use lap hoops that your mother invented. Oh, I remember you saying about those. Unfortunately, they're no longer available to the public. Oh, you miss your mum. Oh, bless you. Oh, yes, I remember looking them up. I remember looking you up, lovely, in your shop and your mum and everything. I remember you telling me about them. Yes, they're very cool, those quilts. It's a shame you can't get them anymore. I've got a big hoop, but I always find it too cumbersome. And I just end up doing it like this instead. And it works for me. But again, if you're not a hand sewer, but you just fancy doing a little bit of hand sewing now and then, or you just don't feel skilled enough to do proper hand quilting, you can absolutely do something called long stitching. And I quite like the look of it. I'm going to do it. Will this show up on the edge? I don't know if this might show up on the edge. I wonder if I do it I might do it round here. Okay. So I'm going to bring my needle through from a different point. So I'm going to come from over here like that, and I'm going to pop I've put a tiny little knot in the end, and I'm going to pop that through. Okay, like that. So I've popped that through, and that thread is now buried in there with that tiny little knot. Okay, Long stitching is very forgiving. Am I on the close-up? I think I am. Long stitches, it is just a running stitch. Now again, you could mark this out if you wanted to, but I don't. And it doesn't have to be teeny tiny. I tend to do them just under 1/4 of an inch. Okay. And it's just a running stitch. It's literally just a running stitch. I've done it on the blue so that you guys can see it a little bit with this white. I think it'll show up a little bit more. And the whole point of long stitching is it should be a long stitch. Now with hand quilting, I'm sure Patty will tell you, I think it's something like 16 stitches to the inch is like the what's the word, the goal, what you're aiming for. It's like 16 stitches to the inch, and I wish I could do it, but I just can't. It's not a skill I have. I greatly admire it, but if I'm going to do hand quilting, I tend to do this long stitching method. Okay. There are better people than me out there to teach you proper hand quilting. And all I'm doing is literally just now, you could mark out this if you wanted to, but I'm just doing, can you see, like a little long stitch all the way around, following sort of the edge of this blue fabric. And it just gives, now I'm going a bit, I want to be a bit big on that one. So what are they about? Each stitch is about 1/8 of an inch-ish, just over. You know, I'm not overly thinking about it. The whole idea is that it's giving you a little bit more of a homemade rustic feel. 1/4 inch wide masking tape helps for beginners. Yes, that's a really good idea actually, Patty. You can buy quilter's masking tape, which is 1/4 inch wide, and you can use that, and then you can run your stitch along the edge of the masking tape so you get it nice and even. Even better than small. Yeah. 16 stitches to inch was always for piecing by hand, like EPP. Yeah, what is it, 60, is it 20? I can't remember what. I remember seeing a talk by Sandy Lush years and years ago, and I can't remember whether it was 16 or 20 stitches to an inch for quilting, and you just think, I don't know how they do it, because they rock it. They have a thimble on this side, this thimble on this side, and it goes in like that and rocks back through, and you get these teeny tiny stitches, which more patience of a saint if you can do that. It's not my forte. I'd rather hand quilt, but sometimes when I've done, I enjoy EPP occasionally. I do enjoy it. So I quite like sometimes to do a little bit of hand stitching like this, which, like I said, it's not hand quilting. It's more of a decorative long stitch quilting. And you just follow it around. You can see that's probably enough for me to just show you roughly what I'm doing. Okay. Yeah, so I've just done that little long stitch. So I went a bit wonky there, but I don't care. I don't care. You know, it's about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, and they're about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch wide. You know, it doesn't overly matter, but I enjoy long stitching. That's my form of hand quilting. There you go, Patty. So 6 stitches is beginners, 10 to 12 for advanced, 15 to 16 for professionals. Amazing. Yeah. When you think, right, okay, if I just show you on the ruler, when you think that's an inch from there to there, okay, if I'd be lucky to get 6 inches in, six stitches in there. I really would, for hand quilting. Can you imagine getting 16 stitches in there? I mean, amazing. In that tiny little gap, getting 16 tiny little stitches. I'd love to be able to do that, but it's not a skill I possess. It's not a skill at all that I possess. I wish I did. Maybe it's something that one day I'll practice lots and lots. I'm more into my free motion than I think in practicing that than hand quilting. I don't have the patience. I'm not a patient person. Ask my children. So anyway, that was just a little bit of an overview of the next step. Basically, once you've done your patchwork, what are you going to do next? All right. Has anybody got any questions? Did all of that make sense? It was very basic starting point for you guys. But if you go back to, gosh, when would it be? Back on our videos or back on our YouTube channel when we were doing the isolation quilt, which was back in lockdown, so 4.5 years ago. I talked then about all the different patterns on how I looked at them and thought, right, we can try this little bit, you know, all the different stitches and all and everything, and how to look at it. So and how to design stitching on a block when you're doing quilt as you go. It's a lot easier. Where have they gone? It's a lot easier to try out curves and more sort of intricate patterns on a small piece like that than to get a whole quilt through. Okay, once you start dealing with whole quilts, I would absolutely go to free motion then, and you can move the quilt. But if you want to do stuff like this, try quilt as you go and quilt your blocks individually with really beautiful designs and then join them. Try that. Patty, it really has a lot to do with the thickness of your wadding too. Yeah, it's, you need like good, certain waddings work better with hand quilting compared to machine quilting. It's a minefield of information, and you're much better if you're into hand quilting, talking to Patty or going to an expert, because it's not me. Definitely not me with hand quilting. I'm a long stitch girl, so right, that's it, my lovely. I'm glad you guys, some of you found that really useful and you've learnt some bits. Amazing. I'm going to go because I am going to be doing a live with Hayley in a moment. I think we're going to be on the craft store page, and so I'll be over there in a bit. And then tomorrow I hope you will all join us, because, you know, obviously we're looking at different ways of different avenues of getting the information out there and stuff. So we're going to be doing a secret sewing club on the craft store between 5 and 8 tomorrow. Threads make a difference. Yes, they do, Nikki. Yeah, depending on which threads you use. You know, I know people have very, you know, they get quite heated about their threads sometimes. I had conversations in classes about people who only like this thread for this and only like this for that, but it does make a difference to what your stitching is. But again, go sign up to the Barnyards newsletter. They do an amazing newsletter all about different threads and what they're useful and stuff. Or join the raffle, that silk finish cotton raffle. That's apparently brilliant for hand quilting. It's also really, you can use it on the machine. It's great for that as well. But apparently really useful for hand quilting. So did hubby notice my haircut? I told him I'd had my hair cut, and he went, oh right, okay. He said, have you gone really short again? I was like, quite short. He was like, oh right, okay. It took till he came home Thursday night. It took till Friday evening before I said, are we going to mention the haircut? And he was just like, it's your hair, love, do what you want. So he was fine. He was fine. He didn't overly mention it. That probably means he doesn't like it with Phil. If he mentions it, if he just said, oh, I love your haircut, it means he likes it. If he doesn't mention it, it means he doesn't like it. But I don't care. I do like it. Right. Okay. I've got to go because I've got to go and catch up with Hayley. So I will see you all guys soon. I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully on the craft store between 5 and 8. If not, I'll see you next Tuesday for normal 1 o'clock. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. Take care, my loves. Bye.